Alright, well, it's going to be a small update. I actually had 2 packages arrive, but I already opened the other one. But let's get this one out. Turn it out. I mean, there's no reason for y'all to not see that. And then get the other arrivals over. And we'll begin by looking at One Piece Season 12 Voyage 2. So, because I'm not, like, pre-ordering and keeping track of this stuff as well, I didn't know this was going to come out. So, my friend that I watch it with, well, we didn't watch both discs. We didn't even watch one disc, technically. We watched portions of one disc. But, you know, it's here. It's open. So, you know, we've got the little bit the One Piece. Next up we have well, this is Gundam. Is that Gundam Seed? This is Stargazer. I guess I don't know. I just don't know. The text is too small for me to read. I suppose, you know, I can take a peek. Yeah, it's Gundam Seed CE-73 Stargazer. There we go. Which I don't know much about other than I see back here that's a Region A. Looks like Japanese with English subtitles only. Yeah. Oh. And then last but not least, the Genius Prince's Guide to Raising a Nation Out of Debt. Which I thought I had purchased, but it was actually something else. Anyways, this one's Region A and B, and looks like the English dub is there. Born to rule, ready for retirement. I guess it makes sense. Ooh, different underneath the slipcover. Always nice when that happens. This is actually kind of a nice picture. Oh, there we go. I was going to say, I have to get the clippers out. No, here we go. Peeking on the inside. It's 2 discs. What was that other one called? I'm forgetting its name. That one involved Hero Realistic Rebuilding Kit. There we go, that's what I was mixing up with. Alright, you know, like I said, very quick, but here's this week's anime DVD collection update. Alright, let's go ahead and begin with this. Thankfully I have my notes here. Let's see, because I have, you know... Okay, I accidentally said Volume 2? No, this is Volume 2. Voyage 2. Okay, yeah, Disc 1, okay. So, you know, that's an hour and 21 minutes into Disc 1, which is episodes 159 through 162, which usually I talk about this entire thing as a whole, but in this case I only watched those, is that 4 episodes? That's 4 episodes. What can I say about them? I am a little blanking. The past 3 days have been definitely a kind of a meh mood. Like, even tonight I haven't really done anything in terms of catching up on video games or anime stuff. Just sort of sitting there staring into, well, maybe not quite staring into nothing, but okay. Because this was just on Friday. Let's see... I don't know. I guess it's just more progress into why things are in the state that they are in. Although it feels like the show was unnecessarily coy about setting all of it up and its secrets and reveals. But Oh well, I guess not everything is going to be the best that it can be. Let's see. Then I'm going through the list of stuff that I've watched online for which I don't have DVDs for. So, My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 126. I thought that was the last episode of the season, and it could have been, it would have been a kind of bad episode, I think. It feels like there needs to be at least one more thing, kind of. Unless it's supposed to be like a core thing, but even then it feels like there needed to be one more episode. And I saw that there was one more dubbed episode. This is a problem where I don't get to see the sub versus the dub next to each other. Which reminds me, interesting thing happened this past week. Crunchyroll is finally rolling out, combining the videos together. So instead of having 8 different listings of Season 1, one for the original Japanese with English subtitles and a different one for each dub, and the season markings just being complete weird-ass bonkers, they're finally collapsing them into one thing where you choose your language and subtitles and all that good stuff. And that's actually pretty nice. Now, there's one downside to that, and that's when you're watching something for which the dub is what's coming out and you're watching dub, which I'm doing with To Your Eternity. I'm not sure if there's a good way to tell how far along the dub that you're watching is. So it just looked like there was a bunch more episodes. I'm like, wait, there's something missing here. And oh yeah, that's because they all got collapsed. And I had thought that the dub just got removed, but no. They're improving their website. And maybe they'll eventually have a good UI to kind of tell us this information where we can say, okay, I want to know how far this series is English dubbed, and it shows you, oh, yes, 10 out of, or maybe 11 out of 13 episodes. Which I think is what To Your Eternity might be right now. Truth of the matter, there's 2 more episodes beyond the one I've watched, and I haven't checked to make sure they're not dubbed, but I'm suspecting they didn't get magically dubbed fast just because Crunchyroll changed the way things work. So I'm playing that one episode per, and if I'm missing out on any English dubs sneaking out early, this is my own fault. I was going to say, but maybe I would know. But before I get too far ahead, so, My Hero, that one's listed differently, I think Attack on Titan, where you've got the subtitle version and you got the dub version as complete series different listings and not seasonal different listings within the same series. So those aren't combined, so I don't have any great insight into how far the dub is for, or how far behind the dub is for My Hero Academia. So it could be 2 more episodes, 1 more episode, 3 more episodes. Heck, it could be 5 more episodes, probably not. Usually these simul-dubs are not that far behind, which is definitely very nice. It's a pleasant series. I'm glad that the I was going to say the voice actors, but it's more than just the voice actors, are spending all the time to make sure those of us who started on the dub and want to continue watching the dub because those are the voices we're used to can continue to see that for such a great series. Other series are definitely great along those lines as well. It's easier to comment about that when you're actually watching dub for a series that's actively coming out and can comment on them, which of a lot of these I am not, obviously. But yeah, other than that, it definitely hasn't been the most whoa, holy shit episode of Season 6. It had a couple of those in there. It's been a great season, like I said. This seems to be kind of going into a natural... It's the right kind of transition out of all that stuff, because all that holy shit can't end in, oh, the series has to be completely over yet. So definitely wanting to see how it ends. If there's anything I worried about this episode, it felt like it was at risk of pulling important attention away from Deku, which I said is one of the great things about My Hero Academia, is the fact that even though it's kind of doing the same thing where, oh, here's a lot of characters and there's a lot of powers and it's showing all of them off, it still feels like everything is about Deku. And a lot of shows easily lose focus on that. Naruto is a show that was not about Naruto until about the Pain arc, which is like 300 episodes into... Not 300 episodes. It's 220 episodes there and then 130, like 300-something episodes in, and then maybe it finally starts feeling, oh, this is a series about Naruto, isn't it? Some early episodes, sprinklings here and there. Most of Naruto doesn't feel like it. It's like the extreme opposite of My Hero Academia in that regard. So, still good things to say about it. Still looking forward to more episodes. Although I'm probably going to take a break this coming Friday because my Friday friend is going camping. But that just means I'll probably fill my time with other stuff. We'll have to see what it is. Most likely anime, video games, something. Could be Pokemon. But going on with anime, didn't watch as much Log Horizon this time. So, Season 2, Episodes 9 through 12, which is only 4 episodes. Yeah. Much fewer episodes. And a lot of that you can chalk up to just low energy kind of stuff. And a lot of Pokemon stuff over the weekend. But I've usually been able to do Pokemon and Log Horizon at the same time, so I guess you could say that there's a low energy thing going on there, so maybe that's not the explanation. Can I say anything about the episodes? The resolution, all the stuff here is familiar to a certain degree, and this is why I'm rewatching it, because I definitely don't remember it as well as I should. Familiar, yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess they did kind of do that, didn't they? But not even remembering at all what they were establishing, developing. There were some plots here. I wonder if I guessed they were. I knew that I had the feeling they were, but is that me actually reading this show correctly, or is it me remembering things that I don't remember that I'm remembering? And that's hard to tell. But going back through it, yeah, it's okay. I do want to continue and finish Season 2, so then I can go into Season 3, and then once I watch Season 3, am I caught up? I'd have to figure out, but I might be more caught up. So, that's a high goal. To Your Eternity, Season 2, Episode 11. Like I said, this was the one where I kind of saw the magic of the merging of Crunchyroll stuff. But otherwise, you know, considering the episode itself, I'm actually liking it. It's definitely giving us good perspectives on these characters. There's some good drama going on, and I call it drama, and don't think of it as just like, oh, worthless teen drama. It feels like it's actually important drama that has purpose in leading somewhere. So, it's good drama. But not like good drama for the sake of drama, but rather it's good that the drama that is there is good. I want you to make sure you temper your expectations. You don't go in there and think, oh my god, this is the most wonderful tragedy since Romeo and Juliet. It's not drama like that. So, make of that what you will. It's a weird analysis, and who knows where my brain is at tonight, but we're just trying. Let's see. Next up, Ninja and Fushin Adventurers Who Don't Believe in Humanity Will Save the World, Episode 3. This one is harder to remember because it was further back. I guess we finally got more backstory into Dragon Girl finally. And I feel like a lot of that episode was mostly that. Hard to tell what we're going to think about the show. If only I could remember how it ended. That's right. I think it was setting something notable up. But I guess you could say it's a slightly weaker, 3-episode intro. Because, like, if you're watching an anime and you give it 3 episodes, this is the part where a lot of series have reached a 3-episode mark. I feel like this series may be a little bit weak. Not necessarily bad in that regard, because maybe to a certain degree, there's been some degree of expectations on what we'll see set up in these 3 episodes, but maybe also a little too much exposition setting up the characters. Too much is a highly subjective term in that regard. But that's pretty much my thought. You know, I'm still curious about seeing what the next episode will bring. Although I am in the biggest haze about what that even is at the moment. So whatever. Magical Revolution of the Reincarnated Princess and the Genius Young Lady, Episode 3. Felt like this was a change from the pacing of the previous 2 episodes, and I think it's fine. Again, maybe as a 3rd episode, there's a slight weakness here in that I'm not sure if I know what the series is going to be after this, because it feels like it was still doing setup as of the end of Episode 3. But there is definitely a slight step back and more focus on our Genius Lady character, our Genius Young Lady, and I remember feeling a little touched by the way the episode was approaching her scenario and her perspective and stuff like that. Nothing groundbreaking, but probably the right pace to let us know that what is up with this character, because at this point she's been completely overshadowed by our main character, who's just been hilarious and fun and exciting to watch do stuff. Now, what they're still planning to do with that, that's tricky to tell from this point, and that's part of why it's probably still a weak episode 3. Heck, there might not even be an episode by episode thing to get from it, and maybe that makes it a good episode 3 in terms of understanding the series in the long run, but it's one of those, it's like the previous one. I'm kind of curious to see where it's going to keep going, but I can't say that I'm super excited for it specifically. Ice Blade Sorcerer Shall Rule the World, episode 3. Let's see, what all happened in it. So some of the characters definitely are feeling a little extreme. I'm feeling like the show's having things happen, and they're for the most part entertaining and interesting, but by this episode it kind of feels like it's just sort of doing what it thinks it needs to do next, and not really if it makes sense for this to do next. So it's like, oh, well, we want our main character to be able to show off some of these things, so we had this stuff happen, but I don't know, it felt a little convenient. So I guess you could say also weak episode 3. But yeah. Otherwise, not necessarily bad episode 3, just at this point I'm just curious to see more, although I do feel like of the series I've talked about so far, of the episode 3s, it's definitely a little on the weaker side. I'm not surprised. It kind of had some hallmarks of that being the possibility, but I don't know that it's bad. I'm still waiting to see what it's going to give me, I guess. Let's see, next up is Chilling in My 30s After Getting Fired from the Demon King's Army, episode 3, and I thought this was a pretty good episode 3. So, like I mentioned, the previous episode kind of showed these threads of, okay, this is what was good about our main character, and so now in order for things to happen, they have to kind of show why his leaving is a notable thing, so we have a better understanding of what he used to do, why he's good now, what his present does now, and I felt like this episode gave some of that. Now, it was a little comical, but at this point, I feel like it's actually a better episode. I think part of the thing that makes it good is it did separate him from, and since I don't remember anybody's names, it separated him from the big booby lady that likes him, the glomper. If you can call that glomping. I mean, that's more like radioactive super glomping, to be honest. But, and it's not that she's bad, but there's a problem with her and her presence. It's that it feels a little convenient for him to be set up like this. And it feels like this episode reined it in just enough so that it's like, okay, it feels better. It feels more noteworthy. Now we understand what's going on and the relevance and stuff. And it does feel like they're going with the premise in a way that's actually interesting. So, good job on that. That's a good episode 3. So this is how you know, not everything is going to be negative from this point. Next one, I think, is also positive. The Reincarnation of the Strongest Exorcist in Another World. Not that I would say that's like super, super great, but it's definitely continuing to maintain the pacing that it's had before and shown not only more insight into our main character, but kind of giving us good indication that there's interesting things that are happening at a regular pace. I'm trying to remember what all happened in episode 2. I think that one was maybe more setup stuff, but this one was setting certain interesting things up, more insight into our main character, some action-y and insight stuff. Overall, I'd say a pretty good third episode. Saving 80,000 gold in Another World for my retirement. I'd say it's an okay third episode. Weaker than I thought episode 2 was setting it up to be, because like I said, I had a lot of praise for episode 2, but with episode 3, I kind of feel like, okay, they showed that there's a lot of thoughtfulness and preparedness, and you definitely feel some of that in episode 3, but I guess maybe the main issue I have with episode 3 is its manner of choosing how to move things forward is a little... I guess it's not a story mechanism I enjoy too much. Maybe a lot of people feel that. But to give it credit, it's now past that, and I do feel like It would have been nice if it was already past that before this point, and at this point I was watching whatever's happening afterwards. But I don't know. I think I've got a feeling better for what this show's going to be doing, and it's interesting. Now, I guess we'll see if it gets really, really interesting, or just stays kind of okay, or something like that. Handyman Saito in Another World, Episode 3. So, I'm going to say that I feel like this is another one of those bad 3-episode sets up, because at the end of the 3rd episode, I think we are supposed to understand that everything we watched up to that point may be a setup to the series really beginning on Episode 4. And if that's really the case, that's kind of a bad 3-episode. Because it means that your prelogue is kind of long. Now, I say kind of bad, and I'm talking about this at a high level. From an actual enjoyment level, it's enjoyable to watch, short to short, episode to episode. You know, it's just kind of nice to have on. I can't say that I'm excited for what's going to happen next, other than the fact that episode 3 does end saying, oh, you know all these other characters kind of hinted at? Well, now they're all finally in the same scenario, I guess. Same area, maybe. And that definitely raises the interest a little bit. I want to see how these characters are going to interact, what they mean to each other in the world, etc., etc. So, looking forward to it. Although, again, you know, there's the weakness of that's probably not what you should spend the first 3 episodes doing, but maybe everybody will enjoy it and won't care, and it won't matter. By the Grace of the Gods, Season 2, Episode 3. Kind of a slow episode, but this would have been the episode that I would have expected to have been what the second season was really about and should have started with. So it feels like it's running a little bit behind schedule, you know, just from a what it feels perspective. But other than that, it's kind of okay. It's neat to see our main character in a different place. I don't think he's gotten a chance to really show some of his strengths a whole lot. A little bit here and there in ways that are interesting, but not enough where it's just like, oh wow, people are going to shit their pants when they see what he can do. Which, you know, I might be one of those people because I kind of don't remember the details enough to know for certain, but I feel like he should do pretty well based on everything else in Season 2 and what I do remember from Season 1. So, definitely curious. That one's continuing. The Misfit of Demon King Academy, Season 2, Episode 3. I would say that continues to be very strong in a Misfit of Demon King Academy sort of way. So, like, if you kind of liked the energy, the mindset that the first season had, well, I can't say that it's being maintained here per se, other than me watching this and feel like, oh yeah, this show is kind of cool in that way, wasn't it? I really do like watching our main character and what he does. The people around him are pretty okay in what they're doing when they're interacting with him. But it's really seeing his reaction to stuff when he has to get involved that is definitely the high point of the series. I feel like Season 2 continues to be a good moving forward with that. Reborn to Master the Blade, From Hero King to Extraordinary Squire, Episode 3. I feel like this series is continuing to be strong. If there's anything about Episode 3 that I would say is really good, it is establishing that our main character isn't being so underhandedly hidden about their good skills that we don't get to see it on an episode by episode basis, which means that, so I'd say it's a good 3 episode because you get to see, okay, this is how our main character is handling these, and we kind of get a good impression of, you know, what they're going to be doing episode per episode, and every single episode has had some pretty decent action going on in it. Some pretty cool stuff where it's just like, I want to see what our main character is going to continue doing. There is a risk that they could easily burn out in terms of us feeling like, I'm tired of watching what the main character is going to do. It's not engaging. That's always a risk, but, you know, it's looking good so far. 3 episodes in, good job. Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skills, Episode 2. Sorry, I was just realizing, okay, yeah, this is going to look like that. Okay, I'd say a good Episode 2. Still waiting to see where it's going to be going long-term with this, so the next episode is kind of the real judgment point long-term. But as a show that's not about, like I said, it's not about, oh, well, here's a dish we're going to show this time, and we're going to just show a bunch of people reacting to Japanese cuisine. It's a little more interactive than that. In that regard, episode 2 is continuing to be good from the first episode. Now, whether or not they establish what this is going to be like enjoyably in the long term depends on the next episode, I would say. But, yeah, pretty good episode 2. Now, before I get on to the high dive stuff, there's the 2 new series that I've added to my list of stuff. Yeah, I know. Onimai, which if y'all have known that's been airing, you may be wondering, why hasn't Gigafrost been talking about that? And I think it's because I've been a little reluctant to start. But then I saw a, yeah, you can see that sometimes YouTube recommends me clips of anime to watch, and I do experience them to a certain degree. So I can say that the dog girl from Reincarnated as a Pharmacist, that's not what this one's called. This one is, I don't know. I don't know. It's not the one where he's the pharmacist with magical powers. It's the one that's rated lower, that's slightly older, but, you know, cute wolf. But, going to Onimai, I've actually found that it's a good show, but this is definitely a much more subjective opinion, and definitely with a couple of notes, I suppose. So, to begin with, I wouldn't say that, like, the character, the jokes, or the stories are going to be all that mind-blowing. So when I say it's good, it's really weird because there's something hypnotic about it. Something about the way that they animate. They animate little motions in ways that I'm not used to seeing, and it's just kind of interesting to watch from an animation perspective. And the fact that it's cute girls doing cute things is kind of helpful, you know. One of the problems with this show compared to a lot of other shows like that is you definitely have to have a taste for, I'm trying to think how to best describe it. Definitely cute girls, I think, is the better way to say it. And remember, cute here doesn't mean sexy per se. There's some sexy girl stuff in here too, but even the sexy girls are drawn in a cute way. That kind of slightly chibi style where everybody looks a little younger. You have to be... Yeah, you have to at least enjoy looking at that. I think if you're ambivalent to it... Is that even how you pronounce it? I don't even know why I tried to say a word that I've never heard pronounced before. Or if you actually hate the style, I don't think the show will be for you, because I don't know that the animation alone will be what interests you per se. But, you know, if you're like, oh yeah, I kind of like that stuff, usually I need a show to be more than just eye candy. But again, the characters aren't bad. I was really afraid that the younger sister character would be pushy to boundary pushing eccentric, because the fundamental concept of the show is the older brother was turned into essentially a younger sister, although it's more just changed into a sister, although the body looks a lot younger. And, you know, I don't know what to think about all that. The show doesn't really question it, so I don't question it. It mentions it, but I don't know if that's as needed or not. It's really hard to say, because really you're dealing with something that's in reality impossible. You know, I know you have people that transition in real life, but this one deals with things like, oh, well, the brother had to deal with having her first period. And I'm pretty sure that current male to female transitions in our real life don't really have to deal with that. And if they do it later in life like he did, they probably will have things like Adam's apples, which maybe have to be surgically modified. The hip structure is probably going to be different, which my guess is, like, they didn't talk about the biology of the hip structure, but they did say, oh, you're sitting differently, oh, it's more comfortable now. And it's an interesting one-off comment where it's like, you really should be talking about the fact that men and women really just have very differently built hips. And while the dangly bits on the male is probably an important part of that, in order to make sure that a man is less likely to unintentionally harm himself in that way, so to speak, I'm not sure that's the end-all be-all. But it is definitely an important part of it. And, you know, because the opposite side of that is, when it comes to evolving something that can
walk more efficiently, you should probably guess that men's waists are designed for that, because women definitely have to have a different structure in order to accommodate the fact that the birth canal goes through the pelvis. And so being able to do that without fucking dying is kind of a higher priority than being the most efficient walker. And I think you can see some of that in real life, where even if I think a guy and a girl are the same height, I think guys have a tendency to be able to walk faster, and so they need to walk slower for her sake a little bit. I mean, it's really hard to tell because you also have dumb shit like high heels, which make it harder for women to walk as fast. But, you know, there's little things like that that could be truths or not, but the important thing is, you know, it's the kind of thing that it feels like this show could have explored, because it does talk about some of the biological difference stuff. And that's, again, why you have to kind of have a tolerance for, oh, yes, the characters are all drawn in a slightly petite style. Or significantly petite style. I think you could make arguments either way. Because no matter what, you're going to watch this and be like, oh, yeah, that's a lot of fan service. But I feel like all that stuff, as nice and complicated and what the fuckery is going on there, that stuff feels very okay. The sister's actually more thoughtful, less invasive than I was afraid. The show isn't about the main brother, the older brother, suffering because of this. It balances the stuff out so that the characters are actually okay. Yeah, I can be okay with watching this. This isn't insulting me tremendously. Insulting me. It may insult you. Don't know. But, and the story, well, you know, it's essentially a cute girls doing cute things anime with definitely elements of, oh, well, that's a little sexy, I suppose, added to it. You know, odd angles, weird shots, things like that. But the draw of the show is, again, there's something about its animation that is captivating. And maybe part of the problem is I'm just not processing what exactly it is. But, like, if you watch the ending, you're like, oh, wow, this is... What is this? There's stuff about this that's very basic, but it's very different. Even if there's, like, some rotoscoping going on, which... didn't try to escape there. Even if there's some rotoscoping going on, this must be the best goddamn rotoscoping I've ever seen. It feels like normally you have a show that's like, I think they call them moe blobs, where it's just like, oh, well, you have cute girls doing cute things, but, you know, somebody's just like scribbling the approximate shape of the girl, and so there's this kind of blob traveling on the screen that's still very cute, and I think K-On! Is an example of this, and that animation is really great too, but this doesn't seem to be doing that. It doesn't feel like it's doing that. I can't figure out what's going on. This animation just tickles the neurons. The monkey part of my brain that works on watching animation is just like, whoa, I just spoke up. What is this? This is actually some really fascinating stuff they did there. I suspect they had some sort of enormous fucking budget for this. But I don't know. I know, like, it felt like Nichijou was like, oh, what happens if you have too much budget and you make a 4Com style schoolgirl thing into a thing? You know, an extreme opposite of Azumanga Daioh. But this doesn't even feel like it's animating in high budget the same way that did. It's I don't know. It's messing with my mind. And if y'all can tell me I'm full of shit, please do, because I'm otherwise a bit confused, because I watched all 3 episodes at the same time. You know, a little bit of a break in there, but, you know, I watched, then it's like, oh, I'm going to watch the next episode. Oh, I'm going to watch the next episode. Oh, okay. Well, series, I wouldn't say you had any story or characters that stood out to me, but what in the world is this animation that I'm enjoying? Really weird. Next up comes The Fruit of Evolution, Season 2. So I had to kind of, like, thumb through Season 1 because I couldn't remember anything other than very basic setup from the very beginning of it, which is good because, you know, I went through those episodes and I'm like, wow, I really only remembered very basic setup from the very beginning of it. So far, Season 2 is off to a kind of slow start, I would say. But it is interesting because I kind of noticed, holy shit, it feels like their animation budget went up. Like, the way the characters are drawn and animated feels like there's more budget. Like, almost first season was kind of given this, I don't know if this will work. We'll give it some budget, but it'll be an okay budget only. And now that that's finished and maybe people are bigger fans of it, you know, Season 2 is like, okay, we can put more budget into this and maybe draw more people in. Maybe. It feels like that. And I could, again, this could be another one of those things where maybe I'm just off my kilter and full of shit. But, no, it definitely feels like it. As for the content, I feel like maybe you had your very beginning stuff and then you had the stuff that was kind of the chunk of the majority of Season 1. And Season 2 feels like, okay, now that Season 1 has introduced those eccentric characters and we moved on to a new area, we have to start introducing new eccentric characters. But it feels like it's being a little slow about it. Like, I think the fact that our main character still hasn't met up with all of his classmates from Japan at all is something that I feel like I'm interested in. I know Ari Furet. I just tried to say the name. I don't even know if I spelled it right or pronounced it right. From Common to World's Strongest, that one. That one had a really good reunion with our main character with his Japanese classmates. That one was very neatly done. This show, I don't know that it will do it the same way because it definitely is approaching from a different perspective. In fact, I would say it's kind of comparable to Iceblade's Sorcerer Shall Rule the World in terms of it feels like it comes up with arbitrary stuff and some of it doesn't necessarily make sense that it's doing, but you kind of just are like, whatever, I'm just going to sit here and watch it. Some of this is pretty enjoyable. And, you know, rewatching some of the stuff from Season 1, it's like, I guess that's a pretty enjoyable concept. It's a pretty enjoyable concept. You know, I think that was kind of my review of the first season. Was it's not this sort of show that makes you go, wow, this is the best anime ever. But I think you can just kind of watch it and appreciate it. It's like, yeah, it's a weird one. But, I guess if I accept its weirdness and its, you know, storytelling being a little arbitrary, it's okay, it's entertaining. It does neat things as it goes along. And maybe it feels like Season 2 is doing the same thing, similar narrative problems, and maybe I just didn't notice them in Season 1 because I got to watch Season 1 all in one go. Then, High Dive, Farming Life in Another World, Episode 3. Feel like maybe okay episode. I say that because there's a possibility that if the show decides to go a different direction with what it's doing, it might be different. But like I said, Episode 2 kind of tells you, okay, yes, this is definitely a village building. I mean, Episode 1, you could guess that. Episode 2, you could sort of start feeling that. Episode 3, I think you're starting to feel that a bit more. So it kind of got up to speed in a certain degree. And I'm definitely enjoying it because, you know, there's something where if you're going to introduce an anime about farming being relevant, you want to see farming. And it feels like this is relative to that. Like, it's not just farming because there's a building up of this village, but the village is being built up around the fact that there's farming going on here. And the stuff that's kind of relevant to that and relevant to, I guess, people making a living, so to speak, a village building up. And overall, I've been enjoying it, I guess. It's a nice, pleasant anime, and I would like to have more episodes so I can just put that on. I'm definitely in the sort of mood where I kind of want to watch stuff without thinking too much, maybe. Let's see, next up, Giant Beasts of Ours, Episode 3. Pretty good, I'd say. Let's see. I think we've kind of established that... What have we established? I don't know. I think it was an enjoyable episode. It's established that even though it introduced awesome stuff in episodes 1 and 2, it's not sitting around saying, oh, those aren't definitely not happening. Although if there's any reason that it might not happen in the future, it would be because they may still be building up our cast of main characters, which is fine. They may have set up what could be considered the status quo, like I mentioned, and if that's so, it's actually pretty fine. Our main character's kind of traveling and seeing stuff, and main story elements unraveling as they go along. That actually sounds pretty good. So we'll have to see. You know, so far I'm enjoying it. I think it's a fine episode 3. Definitely wanting to see more of it. That's finally my entire fucking list of stuff. Oh my god, I'm watching so much stuff. And like, I don't even talk about other weird things I watch. Like, I've been rewatching a lot of Stargate SG-1 today. Not necessarily rewatching individual episodes, jumping through a lot of episodes. I watched a whole lot of A Matter of Time. I really love that episode. I know people might ask, why didn't you watch most of the episode right next to it? The Fifth Race. And the answer is, I guess I just sort of usually feel that, but there was good stuff that happened in that series. Good reminiscing. But other than that, video game stuff, mostly Pokemon. I think I've been setting up and training Pokemon, and lately I've been aiming to collect Pokemon to get ready for the upcoming Greninja raid. Which is to say that I have Pokemon that people are speculating may be good against him. But when it comes to what we're going to build to take Greninja on, we're waiting to see what the actual build is. So this is more about collecting up the candidates, I suppose. And I guess the only one I don't have in the box right now is Skuntank. Not a lot of people are talking about Skuntank, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be super focused on Skuntank unless have I been saying the name right? Unless Greninja ends up being the right set. So, like, this coming Thursday, 6 o'clock p.m. my time, you know, midnight UTC. So, when Friday begins on the international UTC 00 GMT, whatever, time zone, that is when the Greninja 7-star raid goes live, and we find out what it's going to be. And the problem is, I think I mentioned this last week, there's a shit ton of speculation on what it could be because he's a little too flexible. The guess is Charizard focused on special attack, Cinderace focused on physical attack, so maybe Greninja will focus on speed. But what that means, hard to say. Does that mean it's going to have a moveset that takes advantage of its incredible speed? I'm not sure if we know that it can actually do that per se. I think a lot of people already assume that the Raidmon is going to outspeed them, and so a lot of strategies just don't care about that. Which wouldn't be out of line, because when a 7-star raid happens, there's 2 accompanying raids, and the idea people have noticed, the pattern people notice is those are supposed to be Pokemon that are maybe good for taking on that raid, but maybe it's a very iffy word, because the truth of the matter is well, okay, so for Cinderace, if you brought if you brought Gengar, you were probably getting your fucking ass handed to you, because he was probably one-shotting you even with a neutral attack, just because Gengar is not strong enough to withstand those attacks. So okay, yeah, Gengar was good typing because he wasn't weak to any of the attacks, and he was actually immune to one of them. One of the big ones. Gyarados was the other one. Intimidate, yeah, okay, that makes it where Cinderace isn't as offensive, but you know, that bulk up still puts a defense there, and if you're trying to use Gyarados for a special attack, you're not going to do a lot to get through a 7-star raid. There's just too much HP involved. So, and maybe in theory that's what Gengar does, is hit it for a lot, but not the way they design things. So, but in theory, they are Pokemon that are probably designed to counter it. And Charizard had Pokemon that were maybe designed to counter it as well. And then the problem becomes, okay, so then what about Greninja? Well, we already know that it's coming out with Lucario and Bronzong. and I mentioned this last week. But again, if that's supposed to indicate what's good against it, there is one problem with Bronzong, and that Bronzong is weak to dark. So if this Greninja knows Night Slash or Shadow Pulse, those will be super effective against Bronzong, and then that doesn't make it look as good against it. But, as people pointed out, Gengar wasn't good against Cinderace, although we don't know if they're remembering their type effectiveness correctly. Maybe they think that Bronzong is bulky enough to survive it without a problem. But, you know, that means that whether or not Greninja has a dark move is a little flappy, but people are like, there's no way he's not going to have a dark move because he's going to get stab off of it. And maybe. We're going to have to find out. Water becomes hard because, okay, does that mean he's going to have his signature ability, Water Shuriken? If he does, he's probably going to be really, really fucking easy. Worst case, that's his only special attack and everything else is physical. But a lot of people have been worried, I think, a bit more about physical special, or physical water attacks. Whereas Water Shuriken, it would mean that his investment is not in his, I don't know. If he's all special attacks, then Blissey is just going to be able to be the ultimate support mon. It's just going to sit there and say, oh, were you doing something to my allies? Oh, how'd that happen? They're all healed again. Oh, well, helping hand. So, we don't know. And if it's going to be using status up, Swords Dance is the thing that makes the most sense. It's what would potentially make Greninja potentially good Raidmon if you were using him. I say potentially, but he's a bit of a frail frog. But then that would mean he uses all physicals. And if he's using all physicals, then why is he using Water Shuriken, which, would then not be as strong and wouldn't be as notable, and probably because it's his signature move. Why wouldn't you use it? Oh, well, maybe another reason he might use physical is Gunk Shot, which is his only poison type attacking move, which is the only one that seems to matter, which would be a physical attack. I mean, if they do special attack, he can get poisoned through Terra Blast or whatever it's called. But, there's a lot of back and forth you can do with a lot of this stuff. He's got good coverage options, but we've seen that Nintendo hasn't been too mean with making their Raidmon's coverage all that bad. And if he's, again, a special attacker, then his coverage pretty much doesn't matter because Blissey's just going to notice it occasionally. Because he especially doesn't have anything to buff his special attack. So, we're all there, we're wondering on all this stuff. My hope is that we can actually use Anger Point Pokemon against him. It's a strategy I've been using a little bit more lately just because it just gets rid of a 6-star raid if they're something that's vulnerable enough to that strategy. The idea is you have to have at least two Pokemon. You have one Pokemon with intentionally lowest attack you can get. Use an attack that guaranteed critical hits the other Pokemon, which triggers Anger Point to get their attack to the maximum. And then this Pokemon does a couple other things to help set up. Or it has allies to help do that setup. Why is that good? It means this guy with that maximized attack can have a choice band. And you could also do other fascinating things with him. Like, you could skill swap huge power onto him after he has that +6. And then he's just a fucking monster. But, use all these little things to just multiply that really fast. And then attack once with him. And even Pokemon that would normally be 2 or 3 hit KO'd with a belly drum attack, you can easily guarantee 1 hit KO with that strategy as long as they get that attack off. And since their only move is to use that attack, it becomes a lot more likely. They take a little damage from, in this case I'm using Honchkrow with Night Slash because for most Anger Point Pokemon, that seems to do the least amount of damage, given absolutely everything calculated. But, and Honchkrow is also nice. He learns Screech, he learns Tailwind. I don't think he learns Helping Hand, but I should double check. The point is, usually you don't matter. What I've been able to do in my 6-star raids is Anger Point, Screech, Attack Cheer, Attack. Boom, one-hit KO. And I think there's hope that that would actually be very possible with Greninja. It's harder to say because as a level 7, his defenses are going to be higher, his HP is going to be multiplied by 30 instead of 25, so he's going to have significantly more HP. Although his base stats are lower than some of the things I've one-hit KO'd with other Pokemon. So there's some hope there. And if he can be one-hit KO'd that way, then that's pretty awesome. It means that, woohoo, that'll be a quick way to get rid of a pesky Greninja. But if that's not the case, yeah. If all that stuff comes out and the Greninja throws a mentioned but not gambled upon, I'm actually secretly kind of hoping for a double team smokescreen Greninja. I mean, how very ninja of him if he did that. And then they could maybe do Water Shuriken and Night Slash and Gunk Shot and Terror Blast or something like that. Like maybe some combination of stuff like that. If he does all of that, the interesting thing about that is people will definitely have to build raid Pokemon. They have not had to raid build before. That makes me think they won't do it, but then again, I don't trust Game Freak to be particularly smart about this because, they've had those moves in the game our entire lives, and it's just like, do you not know how much this one mechanic frustrates me? Makes me want to punch somebody, but I digress. And I think I'm not alone in feeling that, and the fact that they continue to see that as a valid thing to have in the game makes me think that it's not impossible that they might do that in a raid. And again, if they do, it'll be very interesting just because it'll be very different. If you want my thoughts on what I might aim for, I'm not 100% sure, but I highly suspect that I'll be aiming for... I'll at least build up a Keen Eye Skuntank. Now, this may be hard for people hearing this strategy, because if you find out you have to do this, Skuntank is a Virgin exclusive. It's exclusive to Scarlet. So, there will definitely be a mass, we got to get Skuntanks out to as many people as we can. So, I don't know exactly what will happen. Maybe a mass... surprise trades. I've never used surprise trades before, but getting a lot of Skuntanks out there might not be a bad idea if that turns out to need to be the case. But, and the reason for that is the Keen Eye ability, so it prevents your accuracy from being lowered, but as of Generation 6, I think it also prevents the opponent's evasion modifiers from taking effect as well. So, doesn't matter if they double team, doesn't matter if they smoke screen you, you can still hit with whatever normal accuracy you choose. And Skuntank is not the worst Pokemon. He's got some good bulk to him. He learns Acid Spray, and Acid Spray is one of the best... it's one of the best support attacking moves in the game, period. General purpose ones. So, like, if you have very specific strategies, okay, you got better ideas out there. But... yeah, usually if you can get Acid Spray into play, then you can etch out a victory. And then I guess what I would probably do from there is maybe like Shell Bell and... I don't know. If it's special attacking Greninja, I might use Snarl. Just because that's good for lowering his special attack. But I think we need to... well, okay, it probably needs to be Dark Pulse for Greninja, because Greninja resists poison as a poison Terra type. So you're going to need something that's at least neutral or super effective. And, does he learn Psychic? Well, turning him into a Psychic type could be bad, so it might just be better to go with Dark type and Terrastalize and torture the poor Pokemon with just Dark Pulses. Lots and lots of Dark Pulses. But I guess we'll have to see. again, that's a very extreme situation consideration. I don't know. I can't stop thinking about Thursday because I'm ready for Greninja to get here and get his ass whooped. And I like to say that's where my brain is, but it's more like I've been in a weird low energy mood for the past 3 days, and that's been one of the few things that continues to be active. So, here's hoping. Alright. There goes my... This is probably another 1 hour video of rambling. Y'all, have a nice week.